So I guess it's that time of the year again where I show you guys some of the books that I picked up in 2024. And why don't we start with this one, which is Green Lights from Matthew McConaughey. I think the camera can focus there. And yeah, what a book this was. I actually read this fairly recently, about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And the reason I wanted to show you guys is because it just gives a very intimate look into the life of someone who started out as just a normal kid in America, and went through a lot of ups and downs, a lot of challenges, to eventually, becoming the person he is today, winning an Oscar, all of that. And it's just one of those inspiring stories that it feels like he lived his life almost as if it was a video game. And I really think, especially for the people who have a hard time trying to place themselves out of their comfort zone and taking risks in their own life, I definitely think this is a book that will broaden their perspective and make them realize that sometimes things aren't as serious as they seem to be. So, Green Lights from Matthew McConaughey. Seriously recommend you pick it up. Next one, completely different genre. I actually read this like in February or March, something like that, so a while ago. It is Meditations from Marcus Aurelius. Now, well, what can I say about this book? It is a one-of-a-kind book. It's not like a story where you have the main character and the side characters. It's none of that. It's essentially a diary that Marcus kept. If you don't know who he is, he was an emperor of Rome back when it was still a huge empire, and was probably, if not the most important person in the entire planet back then. So, this book just gives you an insight into his thoughts, the thoughts of a leader, how he dealt with motivation or lack of it, how he dealt with the thoughts of death. And obviously Marcus is very known for his stoicism, which, yeah, it was just incredible to read how he shaped his thoughts around this way of living. And as an 18-year-old, you obviously absorb a lot of it. So I don't know how old you are, but be careful when you read it, because yeah, it's kind of a hard way to live life. I'm not saying it's a bad way to live it, but if you truly adapt 100% that way of life, it might take away some of the flavor. But yeah, it was an amazing book. It really was, to give you at least kind of a perspective of what it was to live as a person that has huge responsibility. This person held power over an entire empire, had slaves, had a lot of people that looked up to him, and yet at the end of the day, it was just a human being. He also had his flaws, and he shares them, a lot of them, in this book. So next up, The Alchemist from Paulo Coelho. Now, I read this book in the summer. It was actually I think it was the only fiction book that I read this year. Yeah, I'm not very into fiction, but I made an exception for this book, and I am glad that I did. It is a book that talks about a little boy that was in Spain, was born in Spain, as a I don't know what's the name. Is it sheep farmer, sheep hoarder? I don't know, but he basically took care of sheeps, and yeah, he just goes on this huge adventure to find his treasure. He tries to go to Egypt to find the pyramids, and along the way, he learns a ton of lessons. And the reason I love this video is because, not the video, the book, sorry. The reason I love the book was because, it really held a lot of truths about the world, obviously masked in the story, but I really could see that it's an inspiring story. It's a story where you read and the person chased their dreams, and even though a lot of times things went wrong and he lost everything that he had, he always got back up and he always took something positive from that experience. And if you're someone who's into, you know, self-improvement, who's into chasing your dreams, if you're someone who believes that you're destined for something greater, then yeah, I definitely recommend you give this guy a read. It's an amazing story. It's a super easy read. I read it in like 2 days, you know. To be fair, I also didn't do anything during those days. I was like at the beach just reading. But yeah, seriously amazing book. Definitely recommend it. And the last one I wanted to show you guys is Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus. Now, this is actually the Portuguese version. I couldn't pick up the English version. But regardless of that, wow, when I read it, I connected with some parts of the book, with others not so much, but it really opened my eyes as to why sometimes it feels like us men and women live in different realities, you know, and that's because we essentially do. We are very different. And yeah, I think sometimes the book really clarifies the fact that we have a lot of discussions, you know, a lot of arguments being created, not because one person meant any harm to the other, but simply because both persons do not understand what the other person's intent really is. Now, I've made an entire video talking about this. I'll try to put it up somewhere. But yeah, it was honestly a breath of fresh air, this book, to read and to understand why sometimes certain things happen and you feel like you have no control over a situation, and you feel like you may have done something that at your eyes was correct, but yeah, to the eyes of the other person, it may have had a completely different meaning. So those were the 4 books that I wanted to show you guys. Also, a little honorable mention, I don't have the physical copy here because a friend of mine actually lent me the book when I read it, but the book is, what's the title? I think it's Can't Hurt Me from David Goggins. I'll put it up somewhere on the screen. But yeah, also it was actually quite similar to Green Lights from Matthew McConaughey. Similar in the way, not that they lived similar lives, but the book talks about the life of each person, and they both had very unique lives, very different from the norm and different from each other, but also a very inspiring book. It shows the ups and the downs of a lot of, you know, pain and suffering, but also a lot of conquest and a lot of success that David actually went through. And yeah, if you're someone who likes, you know, to hear inspiring stories where the hero comes out on top, I definitely recommend that book. It was also an easy read and definitely motivated me to work out that much harder. And yeah, I just had to leave it a little honorable mention. But yeah, those were the books that made the biggest impact on me this year. I obviously read a lot more, but unfortunately not all books are as amazing as these ones. You know, not all books leave a huge impact on us when we read them. That's just the nature of the game. But these ones I really felt were special, and I wanted to show you guys some of them. With that said, I think that's all I wanted to say. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you choose to read one of these books, and leave me a comment if you do. Tell me which one you're gonna pick up. And as always, I love you, and I'll catch you in the next one.